Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari. Some male voices, please. Yasoda Nandana Brajachandranjana Yasoda Nandana Brajachandranjana Jamuna Tiravanam Chadi Jamuna Tiravanam Chadi. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari Kunjabi Hari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Haribo. Okay, what I meant was social distance yourself, but you did it without even knowing it. Okay. I've been reading in the morning classes, so this is like our first class of the day, although it's midday, from Canto 10, Chapter 38. And it's a very nice chapter, very relevant as well as sweet. The chapter is about Akrura's visit to Vrindavan. He's sent on a mission by Kamsa to bring Krishna to Mathura so he can kill him. And Akrura's meditation is to bring Krishna to Mathura so he can kill Kamsa. Double agent or something like that. And from the very beginning, the chapter begins, he gets in the chariot and starts early in the morning. And right after that, there's 22 verses describing his contemplations. And the contemplation is meeting Krishna. So it's nice, the relevance is, it'd be nice if we can also contemplate on meeting Krishna one day. The text number is text 15, 1038:15, for those of you that like to look up the verse. And the translation, Jiva Goswami's rendering of the verse. Then I will at once alight from my chariot and bow down to the lotus feet of Krishna and Balaram, the Supreme Lords, their feet, which yogis contemplate by intense practice in order to attain him. I will also offer my obeisances to the Lord's cowherd boyfriends and to all the other residents of Vrindavan. So that's the verse, and we didn't complete reading from Jiva Goswami's discussion of that verse and the mood of that verse, the mood of this section. from Priti Sandarbha, text 100. It's a long Sandarbha. It's the final Sandarbha of all the Sandarbhas. And the focus is going to the love of the residents of Vrindavan and the love of those who are appreciating the residents of Vrindavan, like Apura. So he is partaking of their love by appreciating their love. And we'll hear something more with the next verse also. Maybe it's a woodpecker. Huh? That's what it is? A bird. Okay. I mean, just approaching the house, it's like a very quiet neighborhood. Except for the woodpeckers. And probably some other guys. You have a garden? And you feed the raccoons and... But... Okay. Okay, so now the commentary, this is Jiva Goswami's commentary from Priti Sandarbha, where we read yesterday, spiritual love is similar to that of material love. That's the leading statement. And he's going to expand on that. Rasa is involved, we discussed this a little bit yesterday evening, rasa is involved in relationships of this world. In the absence of relationship with Krishna, starting back a little bit, within every living entity very naturally is love for Krishna. Nitya Siddha, Krishna Prema. Not just we have Krishna's in our heart, love for Krishna is in our heart, within the heart of the soul. And so he is the natural object of affection. And if supposing somebody doesn't have Krishna as the natural object of their affection, then they're going to have an affection for some other object that we're going to hear. So it can be things. People love their things, their possessions, or they love another person, a living entity. But in either case, if it's things seen separate from Krishna or persons seen separate from Krishna, there will be affection, but it's not the same. So there's rasa, and in the mature stage of the developed stage of rasa, there's love. I don't know, maybe somebody loves pizza, or they love money, or they love something. They love the woodpecker in the backyard. They love being in nature. They love something. They love something. They feel at home, at peace, sheltered by something. Contentment. So if Krishna is absent, then there's those feelings, and material love will replace the spiritual love. That's the point. So here's Jiva Goswami's commentary. When spiritual love, or priti, becomes very prominent, it eclipses everything else. This occurs even amongst the devotees who are naturally attracted to the Lord in his feature of power and opulence. And we heard yesterday morning different examples. Devahuti has love and affection for Kapila Dev. She certainly knows the opulence feature of him, but she has love and affection, and that overpowers. Or Vasudeva and Devaki, they know who he is, but their love overpowers. Even Nanda and Jasoda, we read yesterday, they have some appreciation of Krishna's power, but they overlook that power and just hold him on their lap with affection. Continuing, the spiritual love the cowherd people feel for Lord Krishna is the crest jewel of all kinds of love. When opposing things suddenly appear, that love does not waver. So that's a continuation of, it eclipses everything else. Knowledge of anything is eclipsed by affection for Krishna. Surprises, sudden somethings that normally people get into, like, hey, what's going on, and problem solving and reacting and all those things. They don't go through that. I mean, there's some surprise, there's some astonishment, but it simply serves to amplify their love. When opposing things suddenly appear, that love does not waver. On the contrary, that love eclipses all opposition. When obstacles arise, that love increases. In this way, spiritual love is like the hedonists' feelings for material sense objects. He explains. That love the hedonists feel for material sense objects, love that the scriptures and direct perception both declare to be full of faults, is indeed very passionate and strong. In that sense, spiritual love is similar to material love. And then he quotes a verse from Vishnu Purana. I was looking for that verse, and then I found it later, so here it is. Prahlad to Lord Nrsingadev, spoken in Vishnu Purana, says, Ya pritir avivekanam vishayeshva anapayani. Anapayani. Anapayani is the name of Radharani, or it means, or the goddess of fortune, she who never leaves the side of, the place of shelter, Anapayani. Tvam anusmarata same hridayan na prashripatu. And the translation of Vishnu Purana is, fools fall in love with material sense objects as they always love sense objects. May I always love you. I always meditate on you. I pray that you will never leave my heart. That's just Anapayani. Again, Anapayani is a word used for the Shakti of the Supreme Lord, Lakshmi or Radha, and he's likening himself to them. May I be like them. May you never leave my heart. May I never leave your shelter. Like that. Rupa Goswami writes a similar verse. He says it positive and negative. In the negative, if you would all have attraction, this is one person to another person, saying if you would all have attraction for family life, don't go to Keshigat. Because you go to Keshigat, you're going to see this little boy with a flute, playing upon his flute by the side of Keshigat. And when you see him and hear his flute, you forget all about your mid-family life, so don't go there. It's a reverse logic. And go there. But another verse says, may my mind, like a young boy and young girl, or young girl and young boy, have romance, and they can't take their mind off of one another. So my mind be like that. So this Vishnu Purana reference is something similar. And this is all embellishing a verse from Canto 10, Chapter 12, where Shukadeva Goswami is appreciating the cowherd boys, because it's related to this verse, because Akrura is going to see Krishna, Balaram, the cowherd boys, and the residents of Vrindavan, and fall before them, prostrate himself before them. Very elderly member of the Yadu dynasty, very respected, very learned, very this and that, looks upon the residents of Vrindavan, specifically in this reference, the cowherd boys, Krishna, Balaram, and the cowherd boys, as worshipable. So he's meditating upon, with that mood of humility, praising them, honoring them, getting their blessings, so he can become like them. So the verse from chapter 12 says, these cowherd boys, they're playing with Krishna, whereas the Gyanis, after many, many lifetimes, they may come to the stage of realization of his Brahman feature, or the Dasya Bhaktas, they realize him as their worshipable Supreme Lord, and the materialists just look upon him as an ordinary person. That same person, the cowherd boys are just playing with all day long. How fortunate are they? Shukadeva speaks that. So now, making reference to that verse, materialistic persons, Maya Sukhana, Maya Sukha, happiness of Maya. Materialistic persons think Lord Krishna is an ordinary human boy. Lord Krishna describes these persons in the following words of Bhagavad Gita. And he gives two verses. Avajananti ma mudha manushim tanamashatam. Fools ride me when I descend in human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. And then that's 9:11 Bhagavad Gita, 7:25. Naha prakasha sarvasya yogamaya samavrita. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them I am covered by my creative potency, Yogamaya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. In these two quotes, it is seen that the Supreme Lord rarely makes himself visible in this world. Still, even though he very rarely appears in this world, he personally enjoys pastimes, Vijaru, with his dear friends, who are filled with love for him. This truth fills Shukadeva Goswami with wonder. That's that verse from 12th chapter. Or, these words may also be interpreted to mean, quote, he very mercifully appears before even the ordinary persons who have taken shelter of Maya, Maya Shatanam, and before them he manifests his all-glorious spiritual form, which seems to be the form of a human being, and which is very rarely visible in this world. Still, ordinary persons cannot become the friend or kinsman of the Lord in his rare, more rare, and most rare spiritual forms. With these friends, the Supreme Lord enjoys pastimes. Here the word Krita Punya Punja means they are the best among persons. With these friends, the Supreme Lord enjoys pastimes. Personality of Godhead. Here the word Krita Punya Punja means they are the best among persons. With these friends, the Supreme Lord enjoys pastimes. Their friendship for the Lord is glorious. Here the word Krita Punya Punja means they are the best among persons. With these friends, the Supreme Lord enjoys pastimes. continue, quoting, I'm going to quote again from chapter 12. Even the ordinary people of Braja have great good fortune. Even the persons who have only seen Lord Krishna have great good fortune. The good fortune they have attained is attainable by the great sages. This truth is described in the following words, same chapter 12. And this is the last from this Preeti Sandarbha commentary. Yogis, this is the one that follows the Krita Punya Punja verse. Yogis may undergo severe austerities and penances for many births by practicing yama, niyama, asana, and pranayama, none of which are easily performed. Yet, in due course of time, when these yogis attain the perfection of controlling the mind, they will still be unable to taste even a particle of dust from the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. What then can we describe about the great fortune of the inhabitants of Brajabhumi, Vrindavan, with whom the Supreme Personality of Godhead personally lived and saw the Lord face to face? So he's going to Vrindavan. Akrura's entering. He's not there yet. He's not before Krishna yet. He's anticipating seeing him in the pasturing ground, and he's going to become ecstatic. He's anticipating. He's in ecstasy, anticipating being in ecstasy, seeing Krishna. Meditating upon and directly seeing are close, one can say non-different, but they're not the same on the other hand. So he's kind of like a meditator that's anticipating the mature stage of his meditation. To see Krishna, this is a little, not directly in this commentary, but elsewhere. For materialists to see Krishna, because during Krishna's pastimes, some materialists saw Krishna. And how can a materialist see Krishna? By Krishna's mercy. He can make their eyes such they can see him, because specifically, one cannot see him even in his manifest pastimes. One cannot see him even in his manifest pastimes without his making his being visible possible. He gives the gift of the eyes to see his transcendental form. Something like he says in Bhagavad Gita, or Arjuna says in Bhagavad Gita, if you give me I'll give you the eyes to see. Here's my universal form. And not everybody saw that universal form, but Arjuna saw. Obviously, Sanjaya also saw, because he describes it. See the universal form. See the two-arm form. See the four-arm form. And whoever can see, whatever their disposition of heart is, it's by the empowerment of the personality of Godhead to be able to see. So the yogis, they see that form in their heart, but it's different than what the cowherd boys are doing. They're playing with him. And the residents of Vrindavan in general, they're personally living with him and face-to-face seeing him every day. So how special is the message? And Akrura is appreciating his good fortune and what he's going to do as the recipient of that good fortune. Continuing, this is now the next text, 16, 10:38:16. And when I have fallen at his feet, the Almighty Lord will place his lotus hand upon my head. He's envisioning, and that's what happens. For those who seek shelter in him, because they are greatly disturbed by the powerful serpent of time, that hand removes all fear. So there's 4 types of pious people that render service to Krishna, he says, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. Some people, they're afraid of something. afraid of death or afraid of circumstances of life that are brought about by the shift of time. And the touch of the Supreme Lord removes that fear. And he's anticipating he's going to have that good fortune. And he gets it. It's really interesting. One of the really interesting things is Akrura is not just Uncle Akrura. No, he's many generations older than Vasudeva and Devaki or Nanda and Jasoda. You look at the family chart or the ancestry chart, and he's really old. And at this stage, Krishna is 11 years, 8 months. He's still a boy by physical feature, by appearance. But he's not bothered by that. And Krishna's not bothered by that either, because Krishna lifts him up and embraces him and touches him on the head. He's reciprocating with the love that Akrura has. So it's not based upon the body, it's based upon his love. And then many other things will happen coming up. Here's a short commentary by Vishwanath Chakravarti. BBT has no commentary to this. And he will place his lotus hand, which gives fearlessness to all living entities, on my head. Jiva Goswami writes, because of the appearance of strong bhakti, Akrura is not satisfied with just offering respects. He desires the touch of the Lord's hand. That is expressed in 2 verses. Api means openly, meaning, when I fall at the base of his feet, my master, Vibhu, will place his own lotus hand on my head. That hand is then described. Though I will be successful, if one of his dear friends puts his hand on my head, will he not place his own hand on my head? Time is a snake because it destroys all beings and acts quickly to accomplish its task without being seen. That hand destroys fear in people who desire protection and are afflicted by the pursuit of the snake of time. And Sanatana Goswami writes, this is from Brihat Bhagavatamrita. Some of you know what Brihat Bhagavatamrita is. It's she's got to play. It's a commentary about Srimad Bhagavatam. It's not exactly a commentary on Srimad Bhagavatam, but it's a commentary about Srimad Bhagavatam and in 2 parts, explaining the message of the Bhagavatam. So this particular verse, text 16, and the next one, 17, is in Brihat Bhagavatam to summarize this way. And when I have fallen at his feet, the Almighty Lord will place his lotus hand upon my head. For those who seek shelter in him because they are greatly disturbed by the swift, powerful serpent of time, that hand removes all fear. And Sanatana Goswami's commentary reads, Akrura also speaks this verse and the next in 10th Canto Bhagavatam, 10:38, 16, 17. The words Kala Bhujanga suggest that persons who are serious about achieving liberation fear the force of time. Kala Bhujanga. In another sense, however, the words Kala Bhujanga refer to liberation itself, by comparing it to an all-devouring python. Or, still another meaning of Bhujanga is a profligate man. Profligate means someone who's unrestrained by convention or morality. That's the meaning. Nice word. A profligate man may boldly enter another person's house and refuse to leave, even if the owner tries to expel him. Similarly, even though by the strength of Vaishnava association, a liberated soul may come to understand the paltriness of liberation and try to reject it, liberation may still persist in its hold on him. It's a nice example. Wow, there's a deer out in the street. Little skinny guy. Young one. You have lots of wildlife. Oh, there's two of them. Okay. So I'm going to read some other references from the Bhagavatam where it speaks of the Lord placing his hand and what's the effect of the Lord's placing his hand on the head of different devotees. But it's a benedictory expression, a creating fearlessness expression. So the first one is Canto 7, Chapter 9, Text 5. And the narrator is Shukadev telling Maharishi Parikshit. It's Narada telling Yudhishthira. When Lord Nrsimhadev saw the small boy Prahlad Maharaj prostrated at the soles of his lotus feet, he became most ecstatic in affection towards his devotee. Raising Prahlad, the Lord placed his lotus hand upon the boy's head, because his hand is always ready to create fearlessness in all of his devotees. In the very next verse, by the touch of Lord Nrsimhadev's hand on Prahlad Maharaj's head, Prahlad was completely free of all material contaminations and desires, as if he had been thoroughly cleansed. And then, therefore, he at once became transcendently situated, and all the symptoms of ecstasy became manifest in his body, his heart filled with love, and his eyes with tears, and thus he was able to completely capture the lotus feet of the Lord within the core of his heart. There's another reference to placing his hand on the head of the gopis. This is in the Gopi Gita section, chapter 31, canto 10. They say, the gopis say, "Oh, best of the Vrishnis," they're addressing Krishna, "your lotus-like hand, which holds the hand of the goddess of fortune, grants fearlessness to those who approach your feet out of fear of material existence. Oh, lover, please place that wish-fulfilling hands on our heads." And then there's another reference, same or similar. This is, again, Brihat Bhagavatamrita. And part 1, Narada is visiting Indraloka. And when he visits Indraloka, he witnesses Indra worshipping his younger brother, Lord Vamana, because they're both sons of Aditi, and his younger brother is his worshipable deity. And so the description is very detailed about what articles of paraphernalia, the way of worship, that there's 16 and there's 64, and he does the whole thing. And at the end, Lord Vamana told Indra not to fear the Daityas, for the Lord would protect him, if necessary, by killing all the demons. As he said this, he raised his right lotus hand in the gesture of fearlessness, Abhaya Dana Mudra. So he didn't touch Indra's hand, but he showed the mudra of fearlessness. And if I'm not mistaken, it's this one. So sometimes we see deities like this. Radha is one with her left hand, commonly. With the right hand, she's holding a flower to give to Krishna, and left hand, she's giving this mudra. Whatever the particular position is, deities are sometimes requested of deity carvers to use that mudra in one of the deity's hands. Of course, Krishna is busy playing the flute, so usually it's Radha, giving the granting of fearlessness. So he raised his right lotus hand in the gesture of fearlessness. Now Vamana appeared by Aditi's request. Aditi appealed to Lord Vishnu, help! The demons have taken over the king Indra's position and all the other demigods' position. So she was then given a process to observe, a certain vrata, which she observed, and then Vamana was born as her son. And so he didn't use any weapons to kill the demons, but Vamana, although he doesn't show weapons, he's capable of destroying the demons in any case. In the case of Bali, he destroyed his, he took everything from him, including the kingdom and everything else. But he's a form of Vishnu who can give protection, if necessary, by killing. So, the hand that creates fearlessness. And that's what Akrura is hoping for, and for certain it does happen. Krishna places his hand, little 11-year-old boy places his hand on Uncle Akrura's head, and same as Prahlad. That's not that Prahlad had a whole big stock of material contamination and material desires and all those things, but the according to the teaching of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in Madhurya Kandamini, when the stage of prema comes, then the stage of eradication of all obstacles is, he uses the word absolute. Now, Prahlad was absolutely pure before the hand touched his head. And Akrura is also absolutely pure. We can understand that from the stages of ecstasy that he's experiencing on this journey. The anticipation of meeting Krishna. There's it's a really nice section. Wave after wave after wave of bhavas, sanchari bhavas and vyabhichari bhavas are washing over his consciousness. And they keep moving and moving. He is in the stage of prema. Again, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, what prema is a mixing of bhavas. There's bhava, and when bhava mixes and mixes and mixes and mixes, like waves in an ocean, some rise very high and stay up, some rise and fall, some are smaller waves, and these waves and those waves mix, and that's what an ocean does. So the ocean of rasa is prema. It's a really nice topic, what the ocean of prema is. Rupa Goswami has revealed, or has the realization and has revealed through Lord Chaitanya's mercy, that the spiritual world, the predominant experience is prema rasa. And then rasa has its different components. So there's the ocean of prema rasa, and it has different bhavas and different thises and that's. Those who get the touch of the hand of the lotus hand of the Supreme Lord on their head, whatever the form of that Lord is, Lord Nrsimhadev or Krishna or Vamana or whatever, just even the mudra, fearlessness is given. So drilling down a little bit on fear of what? Well, specifically, fear of time. Kala, Sarpa, the serpent of time. And who can see time? Has anyone seen time? We have measures of time, but what's time? That the clock or some other instrument is a measure of. The rising and the setting of sun is another. So time is an energy, Kala Shakti, that brings things into being and destroys. It moves matter. And so fear of the serpent of time is that whatever I have, which I don't really own, whatever I have, it's going to be taken by time. Time destroys everything. And so one is fearful because one is attached. If you weren't attached, you wouldn't be afraid. If you're attached, you're going to be afraid because time is going to take it. For sure. Not maybe. And, life is spent getting involved in things, entities, whether it's people or children or whatever, the woodpecker or whatever, that one develops some affinity for, and then it's gone. You have to be attached to something, and anything that you're attached to that's of this world is going to be gone. So there's happiness while there's this affinity for the thing that's temporary, knowing all the while it's going to be gone. And sure enough, slowly or rapidly, things disappear. Things are destroyed. So consciously or not so consciously, fear pervades. It's one of the features of life of forgetfulness. Many of the devotees are used to me referring to this verse, so I'll do it again. Bhayam dutiyam abhiniveshitak syat. That's how it begins. During the Labor Day weekend, there was a plan prior to Labor Day weekend to have an event with college kids, but we couldn't do it because of pandemic, so we just had some online seminar with college kids, including some people from this area. And then the next, that was on a Saturday, and then the Monday, Labor Day, was with some other students from some other college. And it was the same topic. They had we asked, what would you like to talk about? And they wanted to talk about fear. I mean, fear of the pandemic, fear of uncertainty, and fear of this and that. But, it's not just old people, the fear of death. It's young people being realistic about, the uncertainty of what's next. So it's not, it's part of material life is fearfulness. Without being just a macho bluffer, no fear. There's fear. So fear is, according to the Bhagavatam, fear arises from abhinivesh, from absorption in dvitiyam, in duality. Absorption in duality, absorption in things that are temporary. Fear arises from absorption because anything that's temporary has duality. It's much warmer here than in Detroit, but now it's getting cold, and then it's going to rain, and then who knows what's next. So whatever it is that's temporary, it's here and then it's changing, and because time is moving things. The movement of the sun, which changes seasons or changes night and day, it's moved by the Kala Chakra. the wheel of time. I mean, it's I'm tempted to go off in a spin over there somewhere. I'll just do it lightly. One of the ways to measure time is by solar time, like a solar calendar. And one of the ways to measure time is a lunar calendar. And the Vedic calendar is a lunisolar calendar. That's what the people that talk about. Just like what we're doing now. Right in the middle of one month comes another month, and as soon as this is finished, then there's 2 weeks left of the other month, and we go on to the next month. And all of that is just to adjust. It's not convenience. It's very scientific, adjusting the lunar solar calendar without going into all the math details. Whether it's this, that, or the other standard of measuring time, time is changing things. Kala Chakra moves the sun. And the sun, through different phases of the year, it moves through different constellations. And the moon, etc., etc. So it's very complicated. But step back, and the big picture is time is moving things. And time is deteriorating things. The 4 problems, Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, is time, 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 and time. Just take disease. Time is connected with karma, like pandemic, disease. And some people are really afraid. Some people are not afraid. And so they expose themselves to having a problem because it's out there. So it can be afraid or not afraid, and it's still there. But time moves things in accord also with karma. Like the duration of life in Kali Yuga is diminished. The lifespan in Kali Yuga is diminished compared to the previous yuga, and so forth and so on. And there's a factor of time. So if you want to have a real long lifetime, wait till Satya Yuga again. Keep taking births till the end of Kali Yuga and take birth in Satya Yuga. You have a really long lifetime. But the cycle of birth and death is moved by time and is connected to karma. It's all, the package is very systematic, it's a little delicate science to understand it, but in the attempt to become the enjoyer of matter and the enjoyer of the temporary is fearful. And it brings rise to the fearful position. And to that same verse, when that condition arises, absorption in the temporary, you forget who you are, you forget who God is, and you're in la la land, having a bad dream. And you pinch yourself and you want to wake up and it's still a bad dream. And then, then it shifts a little bit and it looks like happiness instead of a bad dream, and then wait a while and it becomes another difficulty. It's just the nature of time-moving matter and the living entity that doesn't belong here being part of that. So this placing of the Lord's hand clears all of that. That clears all of that means to understand who you are, understand who the Lord is, and that sense of being connected is not just relief, but it's ecstatic. It's the real position of the living entity. Or in the language of the Bhagavatam, Muktir Hidvanyata Rupam Svarupena Vyavastati. We discussed this the other day. a nice verse from Canto 2, Chapter 10, describing what mukti is, because one of the topics of the Bhagavatam is mukti. But that's what, indirectly, that's what's being discussed here. Being touched by the hand of Krishna on the head of Akrura is beyond the neutralization of material existence. It's the ecstatic experience of his spiritual identity being totally restored by this benedictory touch of the hand. He does not. He wants to pay obeisances, but more than that, he wants the touch of the Lord's hand. So we should also. May that wonderful day come that we can experience the touch of the Lord's hand on our head. And like poof, all material contamination, the whole thing, gone. Permanently. It won't come back. Permanently. That's very special. Prema is a very special attainment. And it comes by mercy. And mercy comes to those who are eager for mercy. Generally speaking. At least for sadhakas. Now Krishna can give his mercy to whoever he likes. And he does from time to time give his mercy to even bad people, demons. And frees them. They become liberated, or they may attain sayuja, not just sayuja, but salokya mukti. We're having that discussion in the evening class. Agasura gets salokya mukti. Sarupya and salokya. He gets a form like the Lord, and he lives on the planet with the Lord. What did he do? He tried to eat him. And the coward voice. Bad guy. Lord gave his mercy. So we shouldn't count on that. We shouldn't be agasuras and offend the devotees and get salokya and sarupya mukti. Rather, it's the eagerness for that mercy, eagerness for mercy, and the Lord's merciful. The problem is not on that side. The problem is over on this side, and practice nicely is to give us the opportunity to make that connection, restore that connection again. Okay. So let's see if there's some discussion. Nice topic. Why don't you come over on this side so we don't hear that screech? Good. Go ahead.
Hare Krishna. So the eagerness, the Akrura is contemplating on meeting Krishna and how Krishna is going to reciprocate.
Yes.
So the two questions, I think the first thing is that so Akrura's contemplation is like, that's too high. Like, what is a reasonable contemplation? Too high in the sense, like,
for you.
For me.
Oh, okay.
What's a reasonable contemplation for me to in reciprocation with Krishna? And second thing is that contemplation of something of reciprocation is a showing of eagerness, and is that Krishna knows that what I'm contemplating?
Well, this answer to the second one, of course Krishna knows what you're contemplating. I don't know why you're asking that question. Have I understood your question correctly? Krishna is omniscient. He knows what you're contemplating. So I'll go back to the first question. And I'll answer this way. In coming verses, Akrura speaks about the very elevated position of the gopis. And then there's some discussion by our acharyas saying, so when you ask for a drop, it's not just poetry. It's, it relates to what his eagerness is. Humility that's realistic, not some euphemism, according to your position, according to each of our positions. And as that cultivation matures, humility is likely to also mature, but the eagerness is also likely to mature. It's not that as one becomes more humble, one's eagerness diminishes, or the goal of one's eagerness diminishes. They both increase when bhakti is done nicely. Clear?
So, is there significance in terms of how Krishna, for example, the hand we were talking about today, but placing his feet on someone's head or other place? Is there significance for that? And I guess it's sort of related in terms of, should I be thinking about Krishna placing his hand or meditating on that, or maybe his feet? Is there a difference in terms of where I am and how I should be contemplating on something like that?
Well, that depends on you. And I mean, you probably attended, I'm guessing, when Prematarangani was teaching, when she was studying Bhakti Vaibhav, they started with Canto 1. In Canto 1, and then Canto 2 is the lotus feet. And so the teacher had to meditate on, literally, the markings on Krishna's feet, and making the connection between the markings on Krishna's feet and the first canto. And it's a meditation in and absorption in the lotus feet of Krishna. So now your specific question is, what about the hand? And, should I think about the hand? Should I think about the feet? That's your question. It can change from time to time, and it's not like this is better or more suited for you. It can be simply meditate on the merciful nature of Krishna. For example, this is because of what I've been absorbed in for the past 3 weeks, absorbed in like 18 hours a day, absorbed in this story of Ramayana. And there's no specific emphasis on hand or feet. It's the merciful nature of Ram. So that's another option besides hands and feet, or hands or feet. It's just his merciful nature. Then it's his qualities. There's form, and qualities, and pastimes, name, anyone. And anyone is fine, according to your position, anyone is fine. So if there's a teacher that you are presently relating well with, that's emphasizing this, then you may want to go with this, and then another time it's that, and you go with that. But it leads to the same place. It's not that one is more appropriate than another. Hey. Yeah. Okay. For about 30 seconds. Okay. Her sister's laughing. And I can tell through her mask she's laughing. Okay. Anything else? Do we have some online questions? Nothing? Not yet. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, sort of related to Puja Mataji's question. So in the Bhagavad Gita, it says that as we perform actions, we should take shelter in the buddhi. So this placing of the hand of fearlessness, or this gift of fearlessness, is that in the form of some kind of a spiritual realization that happens? Is that something I aspire to be fearless in whatever I do? And then is that a state that we achieve, or how does it? Again, I'm just trying to understand in the placing of the hand of fearlessness. How does it practically happen in me?
It can happen other than the touch of Krishna's hand, for sure. That's part of the answer. Or, the attaining of his feet. Because the attaining of his feet, in a broad sense, means dainya, or just humility in service. That's the emphasis in Ramayana. Humility, sheshatvam is their term. With namaha, without any false ego. Just service in a dependent mood, always. So that's something to aspire for, and when one connects with that, then there's the feeling of fearlessness, and there's also a feeling of being under the shelter of the lotus feet of, and protected by. And one of the in that same verse from the Bhagavatam, I think it's 10.237, 11.237. The means to get there to fearlessness is by hearing from qualified persons, and hearing from qualified persons, cleansing, misgivings gone, coverings gone, the connection is restored. Then one is in that position of fearlessness. But the fear arises when that connection is covered. And instead one has absorption in the temporary. So there's different ways of describing getting to that position. Your specific question was, is that a realization? Yeah, it's a realization. It's not, it's a realization, just like your hunger subsides by eating. Someone doesn't have to tell you, now you are feeling full. Repeat after me. I'm feeling full. You feel. So you feel that protection, you feel that shelter, you feel the fearlessness. The fearlessness, there's things that it doesn't mean foolishness, but fearlessness, fearlessness that arises from the feature of time, bringing about change in the world of the temporary. One is just accepting of the change of time. And one acts appropriately according to the change of time. In the really mature, what we're hearing, I'm embellishing your question, or the answer to your question. What we're hearing is, in the stage of Brijbasis, they have such priti, such affection, nothing affects them. And we don't have to hook them up to a fearlessness meter. They face all kinds of things. And sometimes they call out to Krishna, "Oh, Krishna." So, but it's not the material fear. It's the impetus to increasing their affection because of the degree of connection that they have, the degree of intensity of that affection that they have. So that's back to your question. That's a nice hankering for our physician. Some portion of that affection that these exalted souls have that I don't have. Or something that's a step in that direction. That's reasonable eagerness and hankering for. Start with the chanting of japa, an eagerness for feeling sheltered and connected to Krishna through the mantra. That's a doable meditation. We're still far from that, but it's a doable meditation, inspired by these exalted souls. Anything else? Raghuనందన్, you usually have something. Yeah.
We were having a discussion today about the mercy of the Supreme Lord. The mercy comes in different forms, and at many times I'm not in a position to even recognize that it is mercy, because I have my sight set on
What it should look like.
Or I'm comfortable in the way I am progressing, and I'm not seeing it as mercy, or maybe sometimes Krishna is giving me an indication to just change do a course correction a little bit, because I'm not mindful of that, and I'm not able to even appreciate that as mercy. So what should be my mood in such situations? Because sometimes maybe the light bulb might glow and, oh, I missed that thing, but many times I'm totally oblivious or blind to that.
So your question specifically is, when you hit one of those patches, how should you respond? Knowing when the light goes on, say, "Oh, I missed it," specifically.
That's one thing. And if even there are many situations where I do not even recognize even after the fact
that I missed it. Well, Kabe Habe Bolo Se Dinamar. That's this from our Festival of the Holy Name. That was the starting point, the yearning. Fact, Krishna is mercy. Krishna is merciful. Fact, I have a tiny amount of faith, and with that faith, striving to make that connection again with Krishna. When will that day be mine? So that's something you can stay with. The yearning is something you can stay with, and even that wavers up and down. More yearning, yes, or less yearning, but stay with it, because it when you stay with it, that's mode of goodness. That you diminishes passion ignorance. And as passion ignorance are diminished, then the affinity for the temporary diminishes. To be the enjoyer of the temporary diminishes. And then it's much easier to make the recognition and course correction. yearning. And even yearning for what? That gains refinement through passage of time.
The other thing that I was paying attention when we were having the discussion today is the residents of Vrindavan are like completely dependent on Krishna.
Yeah.
And they immediately turn to calling out for Krishna, praying for Krishna, and know deeply within themselves that Krishna will be there to protect them always. I do not have that kind of a conviction. And as you mentioned just now, like that earning is there when I listen to such topics. Okay, maybe I'm not there, but at least I can aspire for that. But still, it's a constant battle. There is little faith and little conviction. So is that the input that's needed for that earning to be nurtured?
Well, association, hearing in bhajana kriya, in good association. Recognizing to go forward, this yearning has to become stronger, and it can be strengthened by association and bhajana kriya. So let me go there with the hope that this yearning can become strengthened, and then move further. That's a little bit same answer as I gave to your question. The language is different, but the response is quite similar. Do we have any online questions yet, or no? Okay. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Prabhupada ki. Yeah.